Don't skip leg day, it's Radio Free Innsmouth episode 79, everybody. This week, we are going to be getting into some very high-class stuff. We're talking about Moonsorrow, one of the OG folk metal bands that a lot of folk metal people nowadays don't really like because they're too spooky and dark and black metal or something. Well, it might be a little bit harsh to say that most fans of modern-day folk metal are plastic pagans and nerds. But you are certainly correct in your assertion that the conventional wisdom's analysis of Moonsorrow's voluminous discography is almost entirely incorrect. See, pretty much everywhere you'll read that Moonsorrow started out as a folk metal band, essentially the guys from Fintroll, trying to do more serious music, started out very folky, then later progressively blackened up their sound in line with their initial demos, which were pure black metal. This is not entirely the case. In fact, the first Moonsorrow album is very black metal, essentially being a wedding of two influences. One would be the very stirring and power chord heavy metal of early 90s Bathory. So here you see power chords expanding into very majestic bar chords, sort of a man-o'-war influenced percussion, an emphasis on classical music style of composition, particularly the works of Anton Bruckner are an influence. This kind of stuff pretty much invented the modern conception of Viking metal. And it was certainly very heavy influence on Moonsorrow, as you will now hear. See, straight up Bathory riffs. Even check out this lead guitar that's coming up. It's very much out of Quorthon's playbook. But they've expanded the sound considerably with these keyboards. There's a little Bathory lead there for you. All of this music is written by one guy, Henry Sorvali. His cousin, another one of the Sorvalis, is also in the band and plays live with them, but Henry is the main composer. Remember, this is a black metal band, so you gotta get into that. You can't just be pounding away on them power chords forever. Major black metal influence, especially in early Moonsorrow, was Enslaved. Specifically on their Eld album, which unfortunately is very overlooked by the scene writ large, as it were. I'm not sure why. I think it's a very good album, because you get some pretty cool stuff where they have very slow, majestic riffs that are then followed up and contrasted with very savage black metal riffs, like this. Like this, I said. There we go. So that specific transition, I think, was a fairly major starting point for Henry Sorvali's method of songwriting, as we will now hear. There's a nice folky riff. They utilize a lot of major keys, unusual for black metal. But then we get into some very downright unholy sounding black metal stuff with the same sort of thing where you're using the upper strings of the guitar more than would be normal for metal to give that sort of harsh, keening, sharp tone. And again, the keyboards here are very well done. Subtle but dark and spooky. That's almost like a thrash riff just sped up and tremolo picked into a black metal style. So Suden Uni, the first Moonsorrow album, proves that they weren't just a band that started out named after a Celtic Frost song title with the words flipped around on the black metal demos, and then they played folk metal until they decided to be black metal sometime in the early 2000s. make everybody mad at them, wham, boo-hoo. No, these guys were black metal from the start, and in fact, I would say the closest thing they did to just a pure straight-up folk metal album would be their second one, Voimasta Yakunyasta, which sounds a little bit like a much darker and more evil version of Fintroll, which makes sense because Henry Sorvali also writes all the music for Fintroll. Fintroll's kind of like his jokey project. Then Moonsorrow is the serious one where he says he writes music that he wants to challenge people. Now, Voimasta Yakunyasta features a song that's essentially the black metal version of this.
It's the hardest beat. This is the hardest beat anybody's ever heard. It's made out of gunshots. Gunshots are the beat. Don't you ever hear harder than that?
Well, I think the answer to that question is the only beat that's harder than one made out of gunshots is one made out of the cold steel of the medieval era. Look at this, we got like Depeche Mode style found sound sampling, but it's fucking swords hit, dude. That's pretty heavy, and we have a very heavy Bathory influences back as well. The black metal has been dialed back in favor of just very triumphant heavy metal on this album. Apart from the vocals, which are pretty fucking savage, to be fair. I'm gonna have to warn you guys, this song has a part that is so heavy, a transition so brutal, that I almost don't want to play it. I don't know if you guys are ready for how heavy this fucking breakdown is about to be. Yeah, that's pretty fucking brutal. Voimasta Yakunyasta is kind of like the fun Moonsorrow album. It seems to be a fan favorite. Not really mine. I actually prefer their darker, later material myself because I am,
We are zwei Dunkeljungen, we are two dark boys.
Yeah, one of those. And Henry Sorvali is as well, because for their third album, Kiven Kanteya, he started to darken up their sound quite a bit and also brought in a lot more progressive rock influence. So lots of moogs, very long song structures, do the King Crimson thing where they got lots of slashes and subtitles and colons in the fucking song titles. Every song has like 3 different names. They're all like 10 minutes long. It's fucking great. Let's have a listen to that. So the Bathory riffs are still there, as is the stomp-along epic power metal drumming, but it's quite a bit darker. That part was really cool. That almost sounded like Greek black metal, which makes sense because they list Rotting Christ as a major influence. Nice little way of varying up that melody. You can end it with a little tail that's Greek black metal, or you can put in that Scandinavian style bar chord, or you can do a little bass fill like that. Heavier use of clean vocals as well on this album. Very layered and Bathory styled, of course, but taken to new heights and depths of complexity. This album feels quite a bit more sorrowful than other Moonsorrow albums that came before it, Deutsch. I like the doubling up of the harsh vocals with the clean ones right there. Very cool stuff. Wait, isn't this a black metal band though? Oh, there it is. And then they do a lot of really cool stuff where they work in those clean acoustic guitars in conjunction with the very distorted and heavy stuff. Again, very progressive rock influenced, almost Yes-like. And then y'all have heard this part. I used it as the intro to last week's episode. But I still had to play a little bit of it this week because I really like that part. So, that is the early era of Moonsorrow. But on their fourth album, Verisakit, they're going to get considerably darker, heavier, and more complex, if you can believe that. Tune in next week to see how it goes. Bye, everybody.
You're all going to hell. Goodbye.